Your yard is full of blue jays, not occasionally, not seasonally, but throughout the year. In January, when most suburban yards have gone completely quiet. In April, when the nesting pairs are hunting for protein to feed their chicks. In September, when the family groups are caching aggressively. And in July, when the fledglings from this year's nest are learning the territory their parents have spent years building. The same families return every year. They know this yard the way they know their own bodies, its trees, its shrubs, its seasonal rhythms, and they navigate it with a confidence that makes the property feel inhabited rather than visited. And if you trace backward through the chain of decisions that produce this outcome, you arrive at 5 specific plants, none of them exotic, none of them requiring special expertise to grow, each one doing a precise and irreplaceable job in the ecological calendar that this yard runs on. Work backward from the summer scene first. The fledglings are there, awkward and loud, following their parents through the canopy. This is the scene that most people never associate with blue jays because it happens in summer, when most backyard birding attention has shifted elsewhere, and the autumn feeders have not yet been set out. But the summer scene is where the territory's value is most clearly demonstrated, because a yard that supports a nesting blue jay family has passed the highest biological test this species applies to any piece of land. It has provided not just food and water for adults, but the ecological infrastructure for successful reproduction. And that is the commitment that generates the most durable, multi-generational territorial loyalty a wild bird can show. The adults are hunting, not seeds, but caterpillars, beetles, grasshoppers, anything with soft tissue and high protein that a young bird can swallow and convert into muscle and feather. The adult birds are not going far to find this prey. They are finding it on the tall, thick-stemmed sunflowers planted in the sunny border at the south edge of the yard, not for the seeds, which will not be ready until late summer, but for the insects that live on the foliage and stems throughout the growing season. Native sunflower varieties support a remarkably dense community of native caterpillars, beetles, and other arthropods that have co-evolved with these plants over thousands of years. The sunflowers are not feeding the blue jays directly. They are feeding the insects that the blue jays feed to their young. And a yard with a healthy native sunflower planting during the breeding season has effectively solved the most critical nutritional challenge of a corvid family's year. Go back one step. The fledglings exist because a nest succeeded, and the nest succeeded because the adults were able to find enough protein in close proximity to the nest site to raise their chicks from hatchlings to fledglings in approximately 3 to 4 weeks. That protein came primarily from the insect community, supported by the native plants in this yard, and without it, nesting success would have been significantly lower. Studies on corvid nesting in suburban environments consistently show that proximity to native insect-supporting plant communities is one of the strongest predictors of successful nest outcomes, outweighing feeder proximity, nest site quality, and several other factors that receive considerably more attention in popular birding literature. The decision that made this possible was not a purchase. It was a planting decision made several years earlier, when someone put native sunflowers and other native flowering plants in this yard, rather than ornamental non-native species that support few or none of the native insects corvids depend on during nesting season. That decision is the 5th plant. Move the calendar back to January. The yard is covered in snow. The landscape for miles in every direction has been stripped of available food by weeks of winter foraging pressure from every bird in the region. But there is color in this yard. Clusters of red berries still attached to the branches of the American holly shrub at the north corner, visible above the snow line, accessible without any digging or ground-level foraging. The blue jays in this territory know this shrub. They knew it before winter arrived because they visited it in autumn and found it beginning to produce fruit. They returned in November and December as the berries reached full ripeness, and they are returning now, in the coldest weeks of the year, because holly berries do not drop. They hold on the branch through January and February, and sometimes into March, maintaining themselves through freeze and thaw cycles, remaining bright and visible against bare wood and white snow, available at precisely the point when every alternative has been exhausted. The holly did not get there last It was planted several years ago, which means the decision that is paying off in this January is a decision that predates this winter by a significant margin. That is the fourth plant, American holly, and it fills a gap in the ecological calendar that no other species in this yard addresses. Without it, the blue jays that have spent autumn building the kind of territorial attachment that generates year-round presence would have a reason to expand their range in January and February, searching for resources that this yard could have provided if the planting decision had been made earlier. Go back further, to October. The holly berries are just ripening, but the more urgent activity in the yard in October is at a different plant entirely, the flowering dogwood shrub that has been producing clusters of small red drupes since late summer. The birds have been stripping it methodically, returning repeatedly throughout September and October, and the reason they prioritize these berries over almost any other food source at this time of year is nutritional precision. Dogwood berries are exceptionally high in fat relative to other native fruits, arriving at the exact moment when blue jays are shifting their biological priority from the protein-heavy demands of the breeding season to the fat accumulation that winter survival requires. A blue jay eating dogwood berries in October is not simply taking advantage of an available food source. It is meeting a specific metabolic need with a specific plant that happens to produce the right fuel at the right time. That is the third plant, flowering dogwood, and it earns its place in the yard's ecological calendar by addressing the autumn to winter nutritional transition that no other element of the yard's setup can fully replicate. Keep going backward, now to September, when the most intensive activity in the yard centers not on the shrubs, but on the trees. The oak at the back of the property is dropping acorns, and the blue jays have been working it for weeks with an urgency that looks almost frantic from a human perspective. The birds are loading their gular pouches, the elastic expandable sacs in their throats, designed specifically for carrying multiple large seeds simultaneously, flying them to cache sites scattered across the surrounding territory. A single bird may make 100 or more of these trips in a single day. The acorns being cached now are the food reserve this family will draw on when the ground freezes and the landscape stops offering anything retrievable. Not all of them will be recovered. Many will be forgotten, and the ones that are forgotten will germinate in spring, carrying the oak tree's seeds further from the parent canopy than wind or gravity could ever move them. The blue jays caching this tree's acorns are, in an ecological sense, planting its offspring across the surrounding landscape. This is the second plant, the oak, genus Quercus, and its presence in the yard is the single most powerful ecological anchor in the entire system. No feeder, no supplement, no commercial product generates the behavioral commitment that a productive oak generates, because the relationship between blue jays and oaks is not a matter of preference. It is a matter of species-level survival strategy built over thousands of years of coevolution. A yard with a mature oak is a yard that blue jays have a biological reason to treat as core territory, rather than as a peripheral stop. Go back one more step to earlier in the autumn, or to several autumns ago when the decision was made to also plant hickory alongside the oak. Hickory trees produce nuts with a fat content significantly higher than acorns, making them a calorie-dense supplement during the same caching season that the oak dominates. Blue jays approach hickory nuts differently, wedging them against bark and working with their bills to break the thick shells open. It is physically demanding work, and corvids do not avoid it. They engage with it in a way that researchers studying problem-solving behavior in birds consistently find characteristic of the family's cognitive engagement with challenging food sources. A yard with both an oak and a hickory offers seasonal abundance and behavioral variety, and blue jays that find both in the same territory do not need to range widely to meet their caching requirements. That is the first plant, hickory, and it completes the autumn caching picture that the oak begins. Trace the full chain now from its beginning. Someone planted a hickory and an oak, understanding or intuiting that these trees would become the ecological core of a blue jay territory over the years it would take them to mature. They planted a flowering dogwood, understanding that its autumn berries address a nutritional gap that the hard mass trees do not. They planted an American holly, understanding that its persistent winter berries would carry the birds through the weeks when everything else was gone. And they planted native sunflowers in a sunny border, understanding or discovering that native plants support the insect communities that nesting birds need in spring, in a way that ornamental non-native species simply do not. None of these plants requires elaborate maintenance. None of them requires commercial inputs, specialized knowledge, or ongoing seasonal purchasing. Once established, each one does its ecological job autonomously, on the schedule that its biology and the seasonal calendar determine together, independent of any human management beyond the original decision to put it in the ground. The system they form together covers every point in the annual cycle, where blue jays face a nutritional challenge or a resource requirement that determines whether a particular piece of territory is worth committing to. This is what turns a yard into a place that wild birds return to year after year. Not one product or one trick or one seasonal gesture, but 5 plants, each doing a specific job in a specific season, together forming the kind of ecological continuity that corvids, with their long memories and their careful territorial mapping, recognize and invest in. The outcome described at the beginning of this video, a yard full of blue jays in every season, is not an accident, and it is not luck. It is the result of decisions made years in advance, plants growing toward the maturity that makes them ecologically valuable, and birds doing what birds with sophisticated spatial memories do when they find what they need, coming back. If you want to explore what any one of these plants looks like in more depth, or what the realistic timeline of establishing this kind of yard actually involves, let us know in the comments, and we will cover it next. And if this gave you a clearer picture of what 5 specific planting decisions could produce over time, give the video a like and subscribe, because there is a lot more of this kind of content coming.